welcome to Corinne's Picks. This episode is a look at the extraordinary career of Junior Elias Andrews of Cookery House, Jab Jab Productions. Welcome to the show, Junior Elias Andrews.
Thank you, Karen. I'm happy to be here. Thank you once again for having me on your show. And you got the name correct. I love it. Uh,
It's taken a
thank
while.
you.
We've had several episodes with Mr. Elias. He is a master craftsman. He is a costume designer that specializes in the carnival arts. He's originally from Trinidad, but he's been just wowing us in Brooklyn and all over New York. He's a celebrated designer. Before we get into a deep conversation about his career and his work, I just have to share a video with you so you'll know the magnitude of his work and the traditions he's trying to carry on. So if you don't mind, can we see the video of Mr. Elias's work?
I'm about cultural exchange. The more you know is the more you grow. And there's lots of cultural exchange happening around the world, but we as Caribbean people have so much to offer. When I started doing art, I started doing art based on a need to vent, to take a negative narrative and put it into a positive narrative. And I really didn't know what I was doing. But all I knew is that my spirit said, do this. The idea behind Voodoo on the Rebirth, it came to me last year when I just completed the Royal Obeah in Port of Spain, Trinidad. And I wanted to show the richness of artistry on fabric. That influence came from Haiti. This is the costume this year, 2019, Voodoo on the Rebirth. But this is the first part of it. So you start with the pureness of the white. And then you add in the colors to symbolize the tribalness, the strength, who you are, the beauty.
There's so much to unpack here in that video. There's Caribbean culture, there's the costume design, and there's religion. And there's also your concept of carnival as therapy. So help us understand, please unpack this for us.
First, I'd like to say thank you again for having me. And hello to your audience worldwide. Voodoo basically is the concept of taking a word that has been demonized or a word that has been forgotten for a long time and creating a mass of expression and a mass of joy. Um, Voodoo relates to Haiti. It relates to the Benin people. It relates to the Western world word voodoo. So the word voodoo is known worldwide, and the connotations of voodoo is mixed reaction. Something is darkness, something is not, something is it is the only religion that's freed the slaves in Haiti and got Haiti independence. But I went a little deeper into that word and found the original word, which is called voodoo, the awakening. So it took me to a point where I needed to show the royalty, I needed to show the proudness, I needed to show this is not something you have to fear, but something you are and you have to embrace. So that voodoo costume of the men in the regal skirts and the regal colors, the women the regal gongs and the flags and the whole procession on the stage. It is to show our majesty, but also it has a spiritual side of it which anchors you into who you are as an African, who you are as a person of culture. Coming from Trinidad and Tobago, my carnival background allows me to be flexible, it allows me to be imaginative, it allows me to explore our Black history.
And it truly is diaspora, part of the African diaspora. I know that It's very strong in Brazil. It's called Candomblé.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, I'm married to somebody from Puerto Rico, so I know that in Puerto Rico, it's called Santeria. I know that it exists in Cuba. It's very strong in Cuba. It has the different societies you
Oh yes.
organized around the religion. Um, there's a classic book called Flash of the Spirit, really that traces the whole um, voyage of this very strong religion from Africa to different parts of the Caribbean and its symbolism. You know, and so I'm gonna be quiet and let the master finish
No,
explaining.
I am enjoying. I'm enjoying what you say. I mean, I'm enjoying you. I'm enjoying you.
No, but I know it more academically. I know a little tiny bit, but I've just enjoyed seeing it come to life because the imagination that we get is from Hollywood, and which
Right.
is very
Yes.
negative. But to see people that actually it's part of their culture, it just reminds me of the majesty of in which people, um, the Hindu religion, or even the concept in the Catholics of having saints. It's no different than what I see other spiritual traditions, you know, an expression basically.
Well,
So
I would dive in where you coming from right there. I like. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I what you're saying there is so important because for many years or many centuries, black religion has been demonized, or anything that authentically comes from the black nation or the black people is seen as something bad, or is seen as something with some kind of suspicion. You have to look for it, or it might do you something, and that was created by the colonials to detract from the cruelty and the inhumane behavior that they put onto the African people and to other people of ethnic origins. So what they do first is that they strip your religion, and then stripping your religion, they strip your culture, and then stripping your culture, they strip your humanity, and then they change your name, and then they make you seem like you're less of value to the world or to yourself, and therefore they can then do what they want to do with you. But in the African religions around the world, the religion is the centerpiece of the culture. It's the same thing with the Hindu, it's the same thing with the Muslim, it's the same thing with the Catholics, the same thing with the Anglican. And I can go back to say that a lot of the Catholic culture or the New Age religion stem from the old religion. When I was doing my research on Obia, I ran across the Black Madonna, which is very much worshipped in Europe and very much worshipped in Poland. And the Catholic Church worship and embrace the Black Madonna. So
but
that is the, mm,
it's really interesting because even some of the geographical references in the Bible are in Yemen, they're in South Sudan, Axum, all these places. Whereas growing up in Sunday school, everybody looks like they're from Finland or Sweden. And there's
but
no references. The references to blackness is like you're the children of Ham, that you were punished.
right.
You were punished and made black and sent into Africa. So I mean, the religion is something that I think part of this reckoning that's happening in the United States now is the reclaiming of our true identity in many aspects, and one of them is religion.
Well, one of the things that you have to consider um, when you have human expression, it comes from the soul. And you have human expression, which is an essence of energy that transfers and transforms, and it can be manipulated in some ways, but always stays to the core of the origins, the originals. It doesn't really change much. Some people like the idea of changing it, but it's when you're dealing in terms of religion and the spirit world, there is a set amount of rules that does not change. And what slavery did, it dehumanized the human factor and try to strip away the mental connection, that spiritual balance, that feeling of yes, I belong. This is who I am. Because if I come and I take away your religion and I replace your religion with something else that I want you to worship, you are no longer authentically you. You are a sub of what I created. But yet still, I will take your religion and keep it in secret because I understand where the power comes from. So I will now unpack the voodoo part of the cultural part for me. As an artist, when I see my people through the ages of time, I've gone through struggles and I've come over those struggles. And you look at what we are, it is to be celebrated. So I come from Trinidad and Tobago, where we have a multiplicity of cultures: Hindu, Muslims, Baptist, Pentecostal, you name it, we have it. Each one, significant one, has a holiday, and it overlaps into each other. You have the African celebrating some Hindu stuff, you have the Hindu celebrating some African stuff, you have the Muslim celebrate Black Muslim, Indian Muslim, a Chinese Muslim. So you have a tapestry of growing up in an environment where you see religion as not the be all and end all, but religion is an essential component to your life. So I as an artist have indoctrinated all of that into my system from growing up. So when I step forward to produce a mass, a word like voodoo, but people may make them fearful, but for me, it's normal.
Yeah, I was quite surprised. And, we're going to break in about a couple seconds for a PSA, but I do want to let the audience know that despite the issues around Verdun, your troupe got on stage in Brooklyn and ended up taking the whole composition, winning first place. So we're going to get a lot more into that when we come back from the PSA, because you're winning, and you're winning with Verdun. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I guess we're going to go to break now.
All right, thank you, Corinne.
The symptoms range broadly. Some people have very mild or minimal symptoms, and other people have more severe disease. Here in New York at Montefiore, over the last few weeks, we've treated a lot of patients with COVID-19. And our patients tell us that in the beginning, their symptoms are sometimes vague. So things like feeling very tired, having muscle aches. Some people report losing their sense of taste and smell, and others report a sore throat early on in their illness. As things progress, some people will get a fever or a cough. A lot of people feel short of breath, and some people actually get a stomach upset partway through their illness. For those people who are going to have a more severe course, that tends to happen around the 1 week mark. And so I do recommend that for those who think they have COVID-19 or know that they have COVID-19, to pay extra attention to your symptoms around that time. And if you have any concerns, then you should contact your healthcare provider to make sure that you don't need to go to a hospital.
New York is the canary in the coal mine. What happens to New York is going to wind up happening in your city and in your community. We are going to fight every way we can to save every life that we can. We are all first responders. Your actions can either save or endanger a life. Job one has to be save lives. That has to be the priority.
Welcome back to Corinne's Picks. We are talking about carnival traditions, particularly carnival tradition in Brooklyn. Today we have a remarkable costume designer, Junior Elias Andrews from Cookeright House. And I'd like to get back to talking about the video that we saw at the beginning of the program that basically it was a incredible video of your win at the 2019 Carnival in Brooklyn. I want to talk about those costumes. Those costumes were magnificent. They were regal. The men looked like kings. They were majestic. The men looked powerful. I mean, they were bare chested with these flowing skirts and with staffs. Tell us a little bit about your process in becoming a costume designer and designing that show.
Thanks for having me back, Corinne. I appreciate it. The process is basically where the spirit guides me, I go. The process can take sometimes days, or it can take sometimes weeks. um, it all varies on what the underlying message is. First, I need to figure out what the message is. What is the tagline? What is the story? And figure out how it's going to be done, both financially and otherwise. But the entirety of it is done based on what the spirit tells me to do, what inspiration comes to me, um, what information I have available to me, and then I go from there.
So how does that come together? I know that in previous interviews you talked about mass camp. Um, and what is mass and what is mass camp? Like, how does this come together, the forming of this troupe and getting to the point where the costumes are made and you're on stage?
Well, the first part of it is concept. So the concept will come from, most of the time, as I said, it comes from the spirit that my spirit might talk to me about a particular word. And then from that, like I will use the word voodoo. And then I have to figure out in my research, what is voodoo? What does it say? What am I trying to get across to the audience or trying to get across to people? And then I go into the sketching of it. And from the sketching of it, I go into the actual choosing of the fabrics and putting the fabrics together with the beads, and putting all the intricacies together. Thirdly, we get volunteers to come and be part of it. So most of it are my friends, people who I know, and some strangers who I don't know, who are interested and they want to learn or they want to be part of something, and they come and they get into it. From that, we go into the production days in my home, because I don't have a established storefront mass camp like we traditionally have in Brooklyn. And a mass camp is where people come together to create. It's like you have a Sunday lunch at your home and all the family comes over, but most of them end up in the kitchen. And the conversation goes from there. The food start cooking. So the sewing start, the ideas start. Oh, I should put a bead here, put a bead there. And then when everybody leaves, sometimes I am up 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours later, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, finishing the concept. So that is what a mass camp is. A mass camp is basically a home to create, or a space to create. The other part of getting from creation to stage comes with when you register with the Carnival Association in Brooklyn, and then from registering with the Carnival Association, you tell them what you want to do, and then they give you the rules of engagement, and then you organize your people to be there at a particular time, and you give them instructions as to what you want them to do. And if something goes wrong in that process, you continue, you don't stop. So if you go on stage and you make a fumble, that is not important. The important part is that you are completing the task at hand. And that means your movement, your gesture, your availability to become the character that you were put into. So that is the whole process there. And I would say a good amount of it is as you go along, you make it you as you go along, it happens in the spur of the moment. So there's a thing called a carnival jumbie. Let me get into what a Carnival Jumbie is. A Carnival Jumbie is an excitement and an energy that make things happen, an enthusiasm of being able to flow. You get excited, and doesn't matter what happened, the show goes on. And that's what happens.
And I can tell you that I had chills. I was there in the last production that you did, and I had chills. And I do agree with you about the Carnival Jumbi, because people were very, laid back when they were waiting for their turn to get on stage, but they snapped right into character and became that regal person, that king or powerful man. As soon as I got into stage, it was a whole different story. And you guys commanded that stage, and I was not surprised that when you won. I wasn't surprised at all. It was such a beautiful time. And
I,
now
you
that
know,
go ahead.
no, sorry, continue.
That was a glorious time, but now obviously 2020 had happened. We're in 2021. Times have changed. We're in the middle of a pandemic, racial reckoning. There was a horrific events with the presidential election. How has that affected you and what you do and your troupe?
Um, the pandemic was very, very hard on me personally as an artist because it left a void um, for me to create or to express. Um, like everybody else, we the community, from what I know of who I speak to and who I relate to, everybody had a watch and see approach, still has a watch and see approach, and we really don't know what direction this is taking us in. Um, for me personally, I can say that I went through depression, a feeling of depression. I went through anxiety. I went through emotions that I don't did not even realize I had. Or didn't even know that was existed in my in around me, and it had me look at myself differently. It had me look at people around me differently. It has also challenged me in a way that it was unrecognizable for me because now I have to consider, okay, where's my audience? Where after coming off a high in Port of Spain, Trinidad, and coming back here on March 19th to go into a complete nothingness. That's the best way I can describe that. Nobody's going anywhere, nothing is happening. The costumes are just looking at you and you looking at them, and the creativity is like stifling. Um, what got me through it, or getting me through it, is friends and family. Um, Culture took a different turn for me. It became no longer something I create or something I can work with. It became, in a very big way, my saving grace. So when I would get up in the morning, I would look around and see a costume that I did before. The memory of it made me still. The hope that it will come back again made me happy. So I ventured outside, and we did last year I did something on Labor Day on the Parkway. Myself and few friends went, and we had jump up in the Parkway by the Brooklyn Museum just to release the anxiety and the stress of the whole pandemic. And then we did a virtual carnival with Riatka. We did some presentation with Channel 11 News and Fox 5 News. So that gave me an outlet to express. But beyond that, with this pandemic, it's very hard. It is very hard because financially, as an artist, it's left a lot of people broke and a lot of artists struggling. A lot. I was fortunate enough to still have something to rely on and people to rely on. But there are lots of people out there who this pandemic has been very hard.
I think, I think it's very thoughtful what you said, because, you hit so many points that I really relate to. And I'm glad that you're so candid and transparent about it, because it's really heavy, and it was a really deep thing. And that's only one part of what people are experiencing. You're experiencing all of that, and then there was a presidential election, and then you were seeing murders committed on TV by the police. So it's definitely so layered. We have about 1 minute left. Can you just tell me a little bit about how those things affected you as well, in like 30 seconds?
One word comes to mind when you ask that question. I developed faith, a little more faith and a little more hope in humanity. Despite what I saw, which was really horrendous and really crazy, I saw a glimmer of hope in Black Lives Matter murals. I saw a glimmer of hope with the Black Lives Matter march. I saw a glimmer of hope in the presidential election, the results. But I also saw something that people may not want to agree with, but I saw America at her worst, and at also the opportunity to become her best. I saw the America that was not visual for a lot of people to see. The racism, the hatred, even right now with the hatred against the Asians who, because of the former president is saying the virus came from China, and people who are willing to commit crime and commit hate and commit bigotry. I saw bigotry against trans women, LGBTQ. I saw the rise in hate in people's eye and anxiety. And I also saw something which was quite unique. I saw the volume of love. I saw the spectrum of love across the board, where people were saying,
so I'm
no.
going to end this show with your words of love and encouragement. Thank you for mentioning the issue of violence against Asians, and thank you for mentioning the issue of violence against trans people. Thank you for being on the show again. I think we'll have to have you back again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.